go. Hustle hard, hustle every single day.
Welcome to the Domain Academy podcast. My name is Joe Styler, and I head up teaching at domainacademy.com. And with us today is my co-host, James Iles.
Hey Jay, I'm James Iles, Domain Investment Community Manager at GoDaddy, and I'm glad to be back for another episode. I'm looking forward to this one.
And I'd like to turn it over to Dennis to introduce himself.
Thank you. Well, hey, Dennis Tinerino. I'm the chief and founder at Domain Smoke, domain investing newsletter, community news and domain daily newsletter for expired auctions, closeouts. I do it just about every day, and it's a part of my daily life and something I do every single day. So I really enjoy it.
We're lucky to have Dennis join us. He's someone that you think of as a quintessential example of building a domain portfolio. He's got domain newsletter and website, domainsmoke.com, that he mentioned, that every day he posts names that are valuable or ones that you should consider investing in to take a closer look at. So he scours through, tens of thousands of names and compiles those down to an easily accessible list that people can go through. And it's good because he gives names that are really, run the gambit of being in reach of the average person to be able to invest in, someone who's new to investing, all the way up to names that are, priced very high, but still a good deal. So we're lucky to have him join us and help us understand what things are important to consider when starting to build your own portfolio. Dennis, we'd like to know a little bit more about how you got started in the domains industry. You said you started about 10 years ago. How did that come about?
So when I got started, I was looking to build a website, and I had no idea about domains at that point, that they had value, that there was a domain community. I was really far from that when I was trying to build my first website. So my journey was, I feel like many others that I've connected with, where, you do a search and you think, oh, I got to think of a name. And I really kind of thought about this website I was building. What am I going to do? What am I going to build? Right. What's it going to be? And I was thinking of a name, and I found out about GoDaddy. So I went to search, and I went on the hand reg type of, let me just go think and boil up a name, see what's available. And I was doing that. And I was doing this for about a week or two before I could really find or come up with a name. First of all, I realized all the short names were gone. All the ones the obvious ones I could think of were gone. And then I finally landed on a name, and that was, I think, 1 or 2 weeks later. And I thought that was really cool. So I launched that first website, and I learned during that time about, names being gone, why they were gone, who owned them, where they went. And I just learned about what a domain name was, how to connect DNS. And then so it came sometime later on where I wanted to start another website. And I was looking for a domain name again, because that's where I had realized that it all started from, was having the right domain. You got to buy one, or you got to search and find one. And I started looking domains, and I started going to landing pages, typing in the names like many people do. And I came across a one-word domain that I really liked. And I inquired, and I got a response back that, it was a minimum offer of 60-something thousand. And I got that from a broker at GoDaddy or Afternic, whoever responded to me at that time. And they said, hey, this is domain is this price. We suggest that you take a look at Afternic. And this is a broker who replied to me, maybe if this is out of your ballpark, look for alternatives that you can afford. There's some other good options, and here are some to look at. So I said, okay. So I started scratching my head. I go, that's really interesting. Myself, I do have a sales background. So I was like, what are people buying and selling here, right? It was, a light bulb, spark there, right? So I took that and I investigated the Afternic website, saw there was a seller section there at the time. And this is back in 2014. So just almost, roughly 10 years ago when I had first done that. And, in that time, because I had the experience of hand registering some names, figuring out how, registration works, how to do that, where it can go with that. I put together a list of, I think it was like 10 names, and I registered 5 of them. Right. And when I did that, I was looking at the terms and how you do it on Afternic. I listed those names on Afternic for sale, and it was, in a smaller price range, right? These were 5 names I hand registered off of things that I thought I knew that had money in those industries, right? Like something where I thought to myself, if I can buy something where there's money there, maybe those people will buy it from me, right? I can't get this one word name that was 60,000 minimum offer, unfortunately, but let me go figure out something. And so I did that. And it was exactly 49 days later, I was sitting at my desk. I see an email come through. Congratulations, your domain name has sold. And that was for $700. And to me, that was hitting the lottery. I literally fell off my chair. I can't believe I did it. Dennis, I'm so proud of myself. And so yeah, I was super excited, right? You know, I paid, you know, what was under $10, let's say $10, call it $10 or so. I GoDaddy to register that name. It was under lock. I couldn't even technically, it wasn't fast transferred. It was, hey, it's sold, we're ready to do the transfer, right? Under that time. And so I was really excited about that. That gave me the confidence to, you know, want to continue to do it again. Obviously, I went and I bought more names after that, just like most people do when they find that quick success or when something good happens. And that was my first iteration into getting into it, you know, hand registering it. You know, I had that intuition there. The name was lawyerboss.com. And, you know, I bought and then sold that one, and that was for 700. So it was for me, that was a great return, right? You know, even after commissions, it was all profit, right? And then so after that, I went into, you know, learning more about it, investigating more. You know, I found things like Domain Sherpa. I found out, you know, blogs and articles that there was a whole community behind domain names that I had no idea existed, obviously, when I first got started. So that's what got me into it to first get going. And then it led to investigating, learning more, and then finding out resources and that there was a community there over time to be a part of to, you know, just enhance my knowledge, which was great. Yeah.
And you mentioned that it was Lawyer Boss. Was it lawyerboss.com?
Lawyerboss.com, right?
So was that your niche when you started? You were looking at legal names.
Yeah. So legal names were big for me. In the beginning, I remember I started, when I looked back, it was legal names, and then after that, I went into like events, venues, festivals, and things like that, where I was thinking industries that have a lot of people behind them, right? Like, you know, you have a gathering, an event, there's hundreds of thousands of people or 50,000 people. You know, if you can get a name for that, there's something there. I remember thinking back, that was my thought process. So it was that niche, and then into that type of space, like events and things that had a lot of people around them, summits. I went into those ones. Yeah.
So the more people in something, then the better. The more people in an industry, the better. The more likely it's going to sell. Is that your thoughts?
Yeah, that was my first thoughts into it. And, you know, and I thought legal because I just see lawyers everywhere in LA, everybody's suing each other. Everybody's a lawyer. There's, you know, you can't go anywhere without seeing a billboard. You know, I'm not going to shout out those people on the billboards, but, you know, I remember seeing that and thinking that, okay, there's lawyers everywhere. I know a lot of lawyers. And that was part of that thought process when I first got going, which was cool. Yeah.
And that's a great point. So we wanted to know like kind of how you built your portfolio, and that helps, I think, a lot of new people, right? So you knew that there was money to be spent in that vertical, right? You kind of knew lawyers, so you kind of knew that area already yourself, so you know you're familiar with it, and then you started to think about like, what kind of potential buyers can I have? Let me get a large group of people that could potentially be interested in this name. So I think those are really key points that you brought up that might help somebody who's new to get started, you know, to think, what do I know? You know, and where is there going to be that demand?
Yeah. I think that, and I was thinking about that when I thought about like my first journey is, you know, use what you know to your advantage as an investor, right? The more you learn, the more you can earn, right? So if you learn these things in the beginning and you use your knowledge, it's going to get you that much further ahead rather than having to go investigate it and learn as a new person coming to it, which, don't get me wrong, you can still learn. But if you have that already, you've got that leg up over the competition, because we're in a competitive space also as domain investors, which is great.
It's such a versatile industry, isn't it? Domain investing, that you can come in from any angle, really, which is a great thing about it.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. You've got people coming from everywhere. And, you know, I've met so many, you know, over the years, I've met so many people in the industry. And yeah, just like you said, come from all different industries, all different backgrounds, educations. And some people are full-time, part-time. You could do it anywhere you want. So that's one of the best versatile parts of it, for sure.
When you started out, you said you'd registered about 10 domains. So when we're thinking about building a portfolio, a lot of people are thinking about how you go beyond those initial 10 domains. So what did your journey look like from maybe 10 domains up to, say, 100 domains?
Oh, yeah. So it was, okay, those first 10, you know, and I looked back and I think about those first, you know, 5, 10, when I first got started, I don't have any of the other ones besides the one I sold. You know, that one had sold, right? And then the other ones I don't have anymore. So over time, you know, things have changed, right? So that journey was, you know, I bought that first 10. I decided to learn, research so I can get to more, because I realized, okay, I did it once, let's do it again. So upon my research, reading blogs, articles, the newsletters that I could subscribe to and find out about I remember searching on YouTube. So I just wanted to grow my knowledge and learn more. And it was during that time that I was buying, you know, maybe a name or two a day in my early days. So I started 2014. So it was around 2014 to 2015. In that time, I had grown from about 100, I'm sorry, from 10 to about 100 domains or so. So maybe like a couple a week or something like that, and doing it in my spare time. I mean, I was really spending an hour or 2 hours a week just reading my emails. I wasn't organized yet at that point. I didn't have folders. I didn't have a separate inbox, which I recommend for any domain investor. Keep your domain separate once you have a lot, so you don't miss an email or an offer, right, or a sale. And it was in that time, yeah, it was about 10, 5, 10 to 100 in about a year or so, in the first year in 2015. So that was that time. And then it was come 2016 when I really had started to build up, because I found out about auctions, dropping domains, expired domains. I started to actually be a part of the auctions and learn what was going on and where I could acquire them. That was probably the part that was that came to me a little bit later, was how I could acquire them faster. And instead of only hand registering names like how most of us started, right? I found out about auctions, and that's when I started to accrue a bigger portfolio in that first 2 years. So it was come 2016, I had roughly about 500 names or so. So in that like 1 to 2 years, it built it up in about that amount. So a few hundred a year there.
And then, so how many sales are you making a year at that point? Like with 500 domains, how many sales are you making to create that cash flow?
Yeah, and I think so in that time, 2014, so I was getting about one retail sale, I think every other month at that point. And when I say retail sale, that's something like 1,000 to 3,000 range. They were all on the lower end. But what had helped me was I have a sales background from years before I got into domains. I started doing outbound, and I figured out outbound marketing. What was outbound marketing to me? You send out emails, you go to the website, you fill out a contact form, you see a number there. If you feel like you can make that connection, you reach out to them, you ping them on LinkedIn, contact them on Twitter. And that's what helped me scale, is because I wanted to sell domains, but I wanted to do it faster, right? Because I learned what happened with the 49 days with me when I first got started, and it didn't happen right away again, right? Later on, that, was that luck, right? But it was great that it happened because it fueled me to be interested, right? And that's what I learned is, getting that first sale really builds motivation. And having those sales along the way is what keeps us going, right? So it was one every other month, which was nice, getting those retail sales, and then doing the outbound to accelerate my sales, which helped me out a lot.
Yeah. I think too, one of the things I like about outbound is that, it's not for everybody, and you got to be careful that you're not spamming people and whatever we go over in Domain Academy, but it really helps you to hear the objections that people have and helps you to hone in on what makes a good name good. And, when you talk to people in that industry, so, you hear from them, oh, I don't really like this. It's not going to help me because of X. And then you go adjust and you go make sure next time you buy a different type of name. So
Yeah.
that helps. One of the things that I'd be interested in knowing for someone who's starting out is, how did you know, like you started at 10, then you said you were at like 100 or so after like a year, and then you're at 500. How did you know that it was time to get to those different benchmarks? I think a lot of people get overly excited and they rush in, they buy a lot of names at first, and then maybe they can't sell them all. So how did you scale effectively?
Yeah, so I think the first thing I learned was it became easier to buy the domains, but buying the right domains was the harder part, right? And I was self-taught. I was just learning from reading blogs and articles and whatnot, just to grow on my own and figure it out. What I was doing was I was looking at what I would see in the newsletters that was selling from other people. So I was using sales data to be able to search and find. I would read blogs and articles, news, like what other industries were happening, right? Like what was going on. I was trying to track keywords as best as I could, for keywords in other industries, like what was popular, like a hot topic. And then for me, staying profitable was like, I learned that I could buy the names kind of easy, especially when I went to auction. I remember the first days I was searching in like, GoDaddy expired, or looking at expired domains through the list. And I was like, wow, there's just so many domains, but there's a lot of junk, right? There's these weird names, all these weird characters. I'm like, what is this? Why do people buy these? Why they drop? No wonder they're dropping, right? And as I remember doing that and buying these names and figuring out, okay, I got to figure out what people want to buy, right? And what has a demand. Because you can easily buy all these names, but if there's no demand, you're just a collector at that point. And that's an expensive collection, right? Especially if there's no demand. And if that's what you're doing, that's great. But yeah, mine was, I wanted to use the profits that I had, and I wanted to accelerate it by doing outbound. to reinvest the profits into building my portfolio to grow it, right? And I figured that the more names I bought, the more I could sell, but I was really trying to be picky on buying the right ones to use that to reinvest.
Had you grown outside of those initial niches that you had? So you had legal, festivals, events, summits. Had you grown outside of those now that you're looking to build your portfolio?
Yeah. So, I've had different strategies over time. Like I've invested in trends on either CCTLDs or the new Gs for a while. Like I've tested those out. Those are like small batches. I wanted to see what happened. I definitely taken advantage of some promos, right? I'm like, all right, for a year, I'm going to do this batch. I'm going to try these keywords and these SLDs that I think are really good. And these new CCTLDs with this promo, try it out for a year, see what I can sell, maybe at a lower price point. I've done that. I've had some different strategies there. I've gone into different keywords for sure, because there's been a lot of different industries, right? When I talk about trends, there's trends that happen in regular domains besides those CCTLDs. So those are the ones I initially knew to get into. Then I got into things that were like medical, right? Because I realized there's a big industry there, right? And then there's a lot of other industries that have gotten bigger over time. And those are the ones that I wanted to watch out for, because you don't always have to get in right at the beginning. You can see it mature a bit and then jump in and then see it grow and just have that right time, or buy into it, even if it's a little bit more, if that works for your strategy. And that's what I've done. So yeah, I've expanded past those different verticals and gone into like finance, even like shows and things like that. I've looked for different ones. And then over time, I found myself getting into brandables, right? So that was a whole nother area for me that I didn't really necessarily like think I would ever end up in, but that I found myself in and have also found success. So that's changed for me over time for sure.
So what is a brandable?
Yeah.
How I like to view it is a name that you don't necessarily think would be something, right? It can stand for something else, and that evokes an emotion towards either a product or an idea that is just more off the cuff, right?
Yeah.
I know there's different variations of that, but that's how I see brandables. Like I look for that name and I'm like, that's the thinking they had behind that, right? It could be that other, you're thinking out of the box thinking is how I view when I'm buying a brandable. I'm like, oh, that's a little bit outside of the normal. Let me investigate or look into that as a brandable domain.
Yeah, that was a bit of a curveball question, but yeah, totally right. At those points with brandables, you're kind of doing it at a bigger scale because the sell-through rate on those, I guess, is a little bit lower.
Yeah. So brandables, I've got in brandable marketplaces is about 30 to 40% of my portfolio listed on like Brand Bucket and Atom. So, with the marketing and all that, I think that really helps accelerate the sales, because yeah, definitely there can be a lower sell-through rate because you're selling names that are outside the box, right? You have to, maybe if they are a narrower market, and I have seen it cool and then get really hot, and trends die with brandables, right? Maybe you think of that one out of the box thinking, but no one else did. So you got to find that one that has enough appeal to more than just that one person or that one part of that industry. So it's not too narrow. You don't get stuck with that.
That kind of leads nicely into our next question. So before we jump into it, we've been mentioning keywords a lot. Keyword is just a word, for in the domain name itself. So it could be something like casino. So it could be like, bigcasino.com. Casino would be one of the keywords in there. And trends come and go. And as you said, for brandables and keywords. So how do you kind of figure out what names to keep when it comes for renewal time for managing your portfolio? And are there any tools that you look at or different things that help you to decide, should I renew this name for another year or should I let some of them go?
Buying them is the fun part in the beginning. Sometimes I almost enjoy the buying more than, we all love that sale, right? But buying them is the fun part, the hunt for a domain, right? I really enjoy that. And that's what led me to do what I do, right? Mm-hmm. And the renewing part, not so much. That's like your admin, right? The taking a look at those names, the renewal comes up, you got to decide, right? And when I look at some of the names, I go, oh, okay, so I bought that name. Let's say a year passes, right? I get that email, time to renew, or I log into my account, I see it's renewal time. I'll either know right away when I see that name that, oh, there's not a chance. I love that name. I'm renewing it. That's a current trend, right? Like that one is still going, or it's a domain that doesn't like tarnish, right? It doesn't get old, like the thought or idea behind that domain, right? So some of them, it's like that, like they're on auto renewal even. I just want to keep them. I renew them ahead because I don't want anything to happen. I've either invested a lot in that name. I really care about that name. I wanted to find the right home. It's worth more than other ones, I believe. So that's some of my portfolios, like auto renewal, because I know that I'm keeping it. It's like a forever domain for me to be able to hold on to and always renew. And then the other ones that I'm not so much fond of, more of like my general inventory, let's call it, the names that I want to have, buy and sell, that I'm willing to negotiate on, or that I may keep for only a year or two. Those are the ones that are not on auto renewal that I'll go through manually. So I do it every week, 1 or 2 days a week, depending on how many renewals are coming that month. I'll go through my expired domains in my portfolio, see what's in there. And things I'm looking for is I love the copy to clipboard feature in my portfolio manager. I use that. I copy and paste it into a few different places. One is I'll look inside of Estimate for pricing there, or for any data. I've also looked for previous sales history inside of Name Bio. Also inside of Domain Academy, I look for the sales history in there. That's been really helpful. Doing it in bulk, thank gosh, I love that. That's been really helpful there too. And GoDaddy appraisal also is a really good, helpful indicator for me too, because majority of all my domains are at GoDaddy. So the appraisal helps me out a lot. Having it right there in my admin, that I really look for when I'm either buying domains and when I'm looking to renew them, right? Because it's helped give me an indicator that there's some value there that I may not realize or may not have seen, and also that a value has gone up or that it could have gone down. So I've used that a lot. And then my other new favorite one is, since I have everything, probably 99.9% names on Afrinic, is how many searches my domains are getting. I have that 365 search, how many times an end users go into that reg path to search in my domain. I love that. I mean, I have some that have 77, 187. I'm like, how can you haven't bought this already, guys? What I got to do? I got to come dance over it. So that's one of my biggest ones that I'm looking at. I'm looking at the Esteban, the appraisal, the searches, and any previous sales history. So those are the big ones that have helped me out a lot. And then also when I paste it inside of Esteban, I'm looking up for CPC as well. I know there's a lot of tools where you can do that to see if there's something that's changed that I've missed, depending on the type of domain. So those type of things I do to decide if I want to keep one, if I'm kind of on the fence, to renew it or not, right?
Yeah.
The number of searches inside GoDaddy. So that's a fairly new one, but that's such a good indicator that someone's gone to the reg path, search for your exact domain name, and that can give you some insight into how valuable that is, especially if I think it's 30, 90, and 365 days. If that's trending upwards, then that's definitely a good indicator.
I really like that. And then, also traffic too, right? If your domain gets a lot of traffic, that's something to consider too. You may have a traffic domain, right? Just one that gets a lot of hits, or a domain that could be trending. And so a lot of people are going there, or it could be something confusing. Someone else, they're on the .co and you have the .com. So those are other things. And I guess one of the last thought I have is how much I spent for that domain too, right? If I spend $10, $11, I maybe have just taken a flyer on that one because I saw something there. That's probably that one last thing I would think of is how much did I spend on that one before I let it go or before I renew it, right? It's one other thought too. Yeah.
So it sounds like as you've scaled your portfolio, you've done some really good admin. That's a really boring subject, but I think it's a really important focus when you're scaling up, like beyond 1,000 domain names for sure, that you need to have a good admin system. So it sounds like you've got everything tracked probably in a spreadsheet or something.
Yeah. So, me and every domain investor, once you get to that point, right, I didn't realize that when I, got past that, let's say 100, 500 domains, you needed to step up your Excel game, right? And was I a master at Excel? No, but you got to learn, right? And that was part of, my journey is, learning Excel, getting better at it, having a sheet or multiple sheets, having the right sheets on that sheet to be able to, sort, be able to track your new names, your sold names, your drop names, what's happening, what you're following, something. I like to also track my pending sales. That's one that I like to look at too. I just remember if a domain was ever pending sale or on hold or had an offer, those are really important things that you want to look back on, right? And yeah, tracking those is really important. And I agree, admin work, it's part of it. You got to stay on top of it, but everyone can do it, especially when you have a lot more domains. You really don't have a choice because you need to stay organized. And I think the most important part of it is creating a workflow for yourself, what you want to follow. Like, I do this step, I go to the next step, and then it's done, right? Whether it's 1, 2, 5 steps, just to always follow those steps and be consistent about it. Hold yourself accountable. Like, I didn't follow that step. When I finish dinner, I got to go back and do that one step for that list. And then I'm going to go, and then I can do the next thing. And It's not easy to do that. I'll say, oh, I'll do it. The next day I go, oh, I forgot, and we've all been there, right? And so I'd say that's really important. And then aside from that, you get your routine, you get your workflow going, you know what steps you got to do for what you want to do. Having it that routine that you follow, right? I'm going to do this every Tuesday, every Thursday for 2 hours after I do this, and then not missing that day or making up for it. So that's really helped me with the admin work, because getting those emails, sorting through them, it's so important. You don't know what you're going to miss, right? You can miss, well, you could drop one of your names because that, you could miss an offer or a who is inquiry, whatever it might be, right? All of that could happen there. And so that's really helped me out. And then also separating the emails, having that own inbox for domains, for renewals, for registrations on one with my separated folders, that's really been gold for me over the years.
Those are good administrative tips for sure, because it gets even more complicated when you start buying names from multiple sources, which
Oh yeah.
then you have names wind up in a bunch of different accounts.
Yeah. Oh, I've been there.
So when
I
you
try to get to 3, just only 3 registrars. When I had, 10, you don't know. I will say in the beginning, it's like I would just go for that promo anywhere, and I'll figure it out later. And I lost names like that, right? And I stay away from doing that because of the admin work. So for me, at that bulk scale, that saved me a lot of headache, and just having to remember the rule at every other registrar, that the way that they want to do it, or for off codes and things like that, has really helped simplify things for me. So yeah, when I've got to that bulk, like what you're saying, as admin, simplifying as much as possible, and the tracking has really helped me out a lot.
Yeah, I definitely think that's important. I've lost names at places where I've drop caught them, and some I don't pay attention to the emails.
Yeah.
So that's a good tip of making sure everything's on the same email that you can check through and keep it separate so it doesn't get lost. So when you look to buy names, right? So you mentioned a couple things, and you run Domain Smoke, where you scour different sources to purchase names every day. What does that typically look like for you? Like where do you go to find your new inventory from, and how does Domain Smoke play a role in that?
Yeah. So every day I go through the GoDaddy expired auctions. I download the list. I'm sorting through that. I have my filters, my tools that I'm looking for. Like I mentioned, I love the appraisal because I can see where GoDaddy finds the high value using the appraisal system in there. That's really good. Domain age. So when I export that list, I take it, I then sort it through Excel. And then I'm, picking through that list of the names that I spot and that I see, right, based on that data. So those fields have really helped me out a lot. When I'm looking at the appraisal, the age, and any of those metrics, right, I take those, I sort through them, and then that's where I'm plucking that list from, right? So I get that first list, and then I scour through it, I trim it down, I look for the ones that I spot or I see value from, or ones that I wonder, hey, what's that about, right? And ones that I'm seeing the traffic come in on there. And then also ones that have bids. I want to know why other people are bidding on it, right? It could be a backlink domain, which is very popular topic nowadays, is backlink traffic history, right? What's going on behind the scenes of that domain to make it valuable. So yeah, I'll first download that list, export it. I'll run it through different tools, right? I'll put it through Estobot, name bio. I'll look at the previous sales history, look at the appraisals. And those are what I'm looking for to be able to narrow down that search. Because yeah, if you're looking at 10,000 names, trying to, research all of them one by one, that's going to, not saying you can't do it. It's going to be a tedious task. It's going to take some time. So, using tools to help me, go through that has been, good to get to that first bulk, and I do it differently. Sometimes I don't have the full amount of time to go through all of them. And some days I will get lost in that list, meaning I'll spend an hour and I'm like, oh, I went through 9,000 names more than I thought I wanted to. Right. So that's part of the fun of it for me at times is, going through that list, trimming down, enjoying it. And that's where I have that passion for it. So yeah, in doing that, I pick the ones I want to bid on. I pick the ones that I'll at the same time to put them into the list by using those metrics and those tools, putting it together.
So not to put you on the spot, but we looked at your lists today.
Oh yeah.
And we've got a few names that we picked out, and
Okay.
we're going to throw them out there, and then you could tell us maybe, why you picked it. I'm gonna throw these 5 out, and then you could tell us which one you think is kind of the best one of the bunch, and maybe how you picked it, and what kind of return you might think people would be able to get on it. So we've got DublinCasino.com.
Okay.
We have socialclinic.com.
Oh yeah.
We have either V, because it might be French, or Vi restaurant. So
Okay.
VIE restaurant.com. And that's the top name you said today of, of your list at $5,100 on the auctions, on
Oh,
GoDaddy
yeah.
auctions. And then we have ybc.org, so a short.org, and we have vapor123.com.
Oh, well, all right, we'll go one by one. That Dublin casino. So that's one that I would say, casino names, there's money. That going back to one of my first thoughts, right? Money in that industry, right? Casinos clearly have a lot of money. And they could be just about anywhere. So that's a name. When I see a keyword like that in the SLD, like casino, and I see a geo as part of it, I love the synergy of those geo plus casino. Something, they can be casinos can be in all different countries. They can be all different cities. There could be ones emerging. There's new casinos opening, I'm sure, all the time. So that's when I spotted there. And if I list a name like that, because I'd say take a look at it because it has those two good things going for it. And then do your background research and make sure that that fits what you're looking to do. And that's why I spotted those ones. Those two really go together, and there's casinos everywhere with a lot of money. So good one to, in my opinion, to invest in because of those two things together.
And I just want to jump in real quick and plug, shameless plug for Domain Academy. We have a tool that tells you the population. So you could put in Dublin, and there might be, Dublin, Ireland is obviously what comes to mind, but there's probably a lot of other cities around the world that also use Dublin. And it's a good brandable name as well. So it doesn't have to just be a geo. It could, just be, Luck of the Irish, right? Like it's Dublin Casino.
That's true. Those, and it's like, we're looking for those ones that go together. And that's, you brought up a really good point. Like I was also mentioning, is like, do that research, right? Like in Dublin, make sure there's a casino there, or that they allow casinos, right? So when I'm spotting those, it's like giving you that, hey, here's this tip, now do what you want to do. Or if I spot those because of those two words go together, take those two, now research them, do that research, which is, I think, the biggest part of investing for success is, having that right research and using tools like we're talking about to be able to find out that information. So it makes it worthwhile. Yeah.
Let's go on to the second name, socialclinic.com. What do you think of that one?
Yeah, Social Clinic. I thought that was, in my opinion, also another cool brandable. I don't know if there's such a thing as a social clinic, but when I thought of social clinic, I thought of anything in like the social world, like social media. It could be a show, a talk show. It could be mental health. It could be like in different industries. So everybody can be social. And clinic is also a very popular word for a while. There was some hot stuff going on. I remember seeing some big sales for the keyword clinic. So putting them together, I thought that could be sort of like either a show, an event. It could be for mental health, like I mentioned. It could be social media. So I saw that and I was thinking there, okay, those two words go together, and everybody's social nowadays. There's a lot of broad appeal, that multiple uses. And that's one I really like, is if it has multiple uses for that name. Social clinic could be different things. It doesn't have to be a social clinic, because I don't even know what a social clinic necessarily is. I've never heard of one, but when I saw those two go together, I go, there's some synergy there of how you could spin that. And that's what I thought of that, those two words together there, and .com, obviously.
When you look at a name, I think it's really important to see if the more potential end users you have, the better, right? So the fact that it could be like social media, but it could also be like mental health, that opens up two different verticals, right, of potential buyers. So I think that's a good point that you brought up.
Yeah, thank you. What was the next one here? What do we got?
Either Vi or V, depends on like if it's C'est La Vie restaurant, or if it's
V. Yeah, so let's say V. We'll go with V restaurant. So that one I spotted, if I recall correctly, that was an SEO domain, backlink history. So I do like to highlight, because I do know part of the readers that I have encountered and I have met of my newsletter do want to buy SEO domains and rebuild them and have that backlink history and know what they're doing in that space, which that's a whole nother podcast, right? But I use the tools and I use the background checks to find out a few like that, because that's not my specialty and I'm not going down that route. I try to stick to what I know. And I have a lot of respect for the people that invest in the SEO domains. That's some real expert knowledge there, which I think is incredible, that what they do. So I spotted that one as an SEO domain, not so much of the domain value itself, because when I put those two together in my mind, like, I see that there was other domains when the words went together had more value, right? But that one has that history, which had the value there, which if it links to, high rated websites with big DR ratings and things like that, that value goes up, because someone could buy that and then reuse it for a new purpose or the same purpose it had and build better from it. So that was my thought process behind picking that one. And there's, I think, at least like in GoDaddy and other auctions, there's a few per day that are like that. Those big heavy hitters. that everyone starts to bid on and that you see the value. And then there's a few hidden ones that always slip through, of course.
Yeah, I think that's I picked that on purpose. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
'Cause I think a lot of people get confused when they're starting out as, new domain investor. They see these names that kind of don't make sense, from what we've been talking about as a keyword, and they seem going for a lot of money, right?
The head scratcher.
Yeah, like if you're going to be using that because it has backlinks from, let's say, New York Times, restaurant reviews or whatever, and it's important for you in a restaurant that, as an SEO company that you're helping somebody launch, then that makes sense. But from a domain investing point, you might have a really hard time reselling that, especially if it's already going for more than $5,000, right, to end user. So I think those are good points. Kind of goes back to if that's something that you're really comfortable with, then that makes sense for you to look at, but you should stick with what you know, especially when you're starting out.
Oh yeah. And that's like when I first started, I'm like, what were these names? And it's always they even hyphen names that were going for a lot. And I go, okay, well, I'm not going to bid in that, right? Or I'm not going to invest in that one. So those were, you have a good point there, especially for new investors. It was definitely a head scratcher in those days for me.
I was frantically looking up the domain in the background on some backlink checker tools and things. Yeah. It's got 2,800 backlinks and a domain rating of 37. So it's I guess it's a good choice for SEO guys.
Yeah, kudos to those guys for investing in that way. I mean, with those backlinks and all that, you got to really get to work because they could expire, they can get removed. So yeah, that's a whole nother area that when someone invested that, it's a savvy investor, that's for sure. Yeah.
So the next one I picked is pretty common. It's a short one, right? So there's a short type of name. It's ybc.org.
Oh yeah, ybc.org.
Yes, you could have a different TLD.
Yeah, that's good. I actually am very fond of .org over the other CCTLDs besides .com. Like on the top, let's say the top 4 or 5 that everybody knows, like .net, .org, .info. It used to be like kind of like .me, .biz, or sort of like those top level ones. .org is my second favorite to .com, right? And there's obviously like a number of 3Ls out there, right? It's a finite number. At some point, they're going to run, all the .coms right now. So people went to .net, they went to .org and all those. So the 3 letters I thought really went good together in .org. And I like the .org. It's short. People like short domain names because they're abbreviating something, typically a business. YBC could stand for many things across all different industries that exist or a future industry. And it may be that, .org has a lot of trust because a lot of organizations use it, nonprofits, associations. So I like that went together. And then I like the Y in the beginning because it could be for your or you or youth. There's multiple words for that can go. And then also C at the end, corporate, company, co. A lot of companies end in that in businesses. So those 3 letters together, short to abbreviate something. And then the .org, I saw that short with a lot of trust. And those are I feel like those investment quality domains that you just hold on to. Like you buy that domain, you're not going to want to drop that. That's a 3L.org, right? So that was my thought behind that one. And those ones I feel like have a bit more liquidity than a random 2word.com, which is what primarily most investors particularly invest in, because those ones, they always have that value because there's a small amount of them, left or available out there.
So for those, you're looking at the versatility of each letter and how they play into each other. So YBC is a really good example of that.
Yeah. I feel like YBC went well together because there is other letters where if you put vowels or uncommon letters in different places, like some of the ones that I know are unfavorable in like shorter domains are going to be like J, V, K, Q in the wrong places, right? So you can buy a short domain, but you may not be buying one that is investment quality, right? There may be that one end user out there one day that comes and asks you for it. You never know, right? Of course, anything can happen, but there's some that are just less likely on the short ones because the letters are in the wrong places or they're unfavorable letters for the most part on that like broad appeal, I'd say. But yeah, I like the way that those ones went together.
And the last one is vapor123.com. Now this is an alphanumeric name. I've looked it up on the Domain Academy research snapshot tool, and there's 1 TLD registered. There's very low stats on most of them, like the broad searches are fairly low, but the appraisal value is nearly $2,000. So why should people consider a name like Vapor123?
So myself, I actually have had, over the years, I had success selling vapor-related names, tobacco over the years. It was actually one of my first larger sales I made in doing outbound. I sold vapenews.com. I actually acquired that from GoDaddy auctions some years ago. And then I sold that one via outbound for about $6,000. So in my past, I was selling vapor domains, e-cig, cigarettes. Those are some of the keywords I was working on and tracking that did well for me. So when I saw vapor 123, I've seen people branding with the 123, and I also like alphanumeric domains. Personally, I've sold ones with different numbers in them, and if you can figure out the numbers that work for the keywords, you can do well, right? There's some popular ones like 123, 411. 911 is another one that I've seen out there in the wild, right? These numbers that go together. And when I saw Vapor 123, I just thought of Vapor Easy, right? Easy as 123. So that branding there, right? I've seen people put on the right side or the left side of the keyword there. But in that one, I just thought, okay, easy vape, like Vapor Easy, right? Vapor 123. And when I see like a higher GoDaddy appraisal, I try to look for if there's a previous sale, especially if there's no search history or if it's only taken in the one TLD, just in .com only, right? I'll look for those key indicators, and then also see if it's been built out before and what else is happening there. It's popping up there. Okay, what else is happening there? And those are probably the top things I would look for. Yeah, Vapor Easy, and it's also easy to remember when someone brands it. As easy as 123, which I do like.
Yeah, definitely. I think a good pick.
Yeah, thank you.
So we went over, your journey up until now. What's your plans for the future with your portfolio?
So as the years have gone, I went from, let's see, 2014, that the first 510 domains, 2015, 2016, 500 or so domains at that time. Now I'm over 10,000 domains. And I never thought that for the day I was there, punching away, that I would have 100 domains even to this date, right? So in that time, I bought and sell them. I've obviously bought, sold, and built, right? I reinvested to buy and sell. I've even partnered with people on domains that I wanted to go into it together, or ones that people have offered to me to jump in that opportunity with them. So my portfolio nowadays is, for lack of a funnier word, trimming the fat, right? That's my goal nowadays, is to stay lean and mean, right? Things change, trends change. Is removing the names that I feel like are less likely to sell, especially come renewal time. So my admin days when I am renewing has been more important. It's great to, buy all those, spend a lot of time buying names, but it's also important to keep the names that are going to sell and let go of the ones that won't sell, right? The ones that are maybe only taken in one extension that you've sort of run its course as an investment. There's most domains that are not like on a promo or something, very flyer, taking a risk on it. I keep for more than 2 years, 2 to 3 years, to see what will happen. When I look back and I see that I've had that name for 2 or 3 years and that nothing's really happened there, or I don't see that name, those type of keywords selling anymore, that's one that I want to let go. So trimming the fat's been important for me, looking at those, spotlighting those, and getting rid of them. I want to sort of remain where I'm at and just focus on the more higher value names, because I have plenty of general inventory at my point, and it's diversified too. That's been really important for me over there. Like years, what we were talking about is, I started in those 1 or 2 niches because I felt like I knew something, and then there was a big opportunity there with the communities behind them or the money that happens in it financially. So I went into other ones to diversify, to get out of only those 2, right? Because I figured, hey, I can't only sell these. There's so many other out there. Especially I started to learn more as I looked at the expiring list, what was available, what was going on out there. So that was really big for me. So keeping diversified, trimming out what I don't want anymore, going for those higher values is where I'm going to be going the next 12 months, and just keep maintaining what I have as the good general inventory, and letting go of the inventory that I just don't feel is where I want to be anymore. So that's my game plan for the next 12 months. Yeah.
Is there anything that you'd like to add that could help newer investors build their portfolios in the right way?
Hey, Mr. New Investor, Miss New Investor, welcome to the domain community. You can go on and buy as many domains as you want. It doesn't mean that you should. It doesn't mean it's the right domain as an investment, right? And take your time, learn, right? You're in Domain Academy. You're in the right place. You're at the right time. Take that time. Hide your credit card and your investment money away, right? Save that up. It's not about the amount of domains you buy necessarily. It's the right domains that you should be buying. And just because you can doesn't mean you always should, right? Because it's not going to get harder to buy domains in general, right? You're always going to be able to buy something, but look for the domains that you want to be invested in, that have an appeal, that have people in that industry, and stick to that, and just keep learning. That's the most important part. Don't know more than anybody. Be open-minded, learn from your peers, being a part of the community is what helped me get to the next level. I was a lone wolf for a long time. And if you're here, you're probably not, which is, I think, awesome. So, take that time, get to that next level. The community is here to help you out. Be a part of it. Join on socials and join on the community, the groups, the chats, the forums. It's a great place to be because, your network is your net worth. You're going to learn and help each other out over time. And in doing that, you'll get to the next level, right? There's a lot of opportunities out there. And lastly, I'd say, just stay open-minded because, it doesn't matter if you're 1 year in or 10 years in or more. We have people in here for almost 20, 30 years plus in domains. You're going to keep on learning something and someone will teach you something you didn't know.
Yeah.
So that I would say are my first tips to pass on there.
And sign up for Domain Smoke as well, obviously.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, and if you can, go ahead and sign up for Domain Smoke. I'll ping you every other day or every day. You'll get my newsletters, and I hope you enjoy them. And you find your next domain on there to invest in, that next flip, right?
Yeah, it's been wonderful having you on. Really appreciate it.
Likewise.
Like I said, I've been in the industry a long time, probably almost 20 years, and I'm still learning. So I learned a lot on this podcast, and I'm sure that people will watch it. So thank you so much for your time and for coming to share with us.
You got it. Pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dennis.
Thank you.